Impressive, Morgan said, amused, looking with her enhanced binoculars as she watched as an arrow flew afar. From the top of the castle with Archer by her side, she watched as he fired with his bow to show his skill. Not just impressive. Those shots were instantaneous, she said, surprised. Even with her vision, she had trouble keeping track. She saw how those arrows shot forth. Like blinding speed, it was a feat that even she, the demon lord, had a tiny bit of trouble keeping track of. Though as she focused more and paid attention seriously, she was able to keep track this time. I say, your version of projection magicraft is quite useful indeed, then, Morgan said, amused. If there's some way to replicate it, then more stronger forces will be created. Morgan said with sparkles as she watched the arrows disappear, looking at Archer, who had his hand on his hip with a look of disagreement. You'd just be causing trouble. If everyone had the same things as me, I'd be forced to exterminate them. Fu Morgan only chuckled, getting up from the chair that she set up and placed the binoculars down on the table beside her, walking up to Archer as she cupped his face. I suppose you're right. If my people were to one day betray me, I would not like the thought of having to deal with a bunch of fakes. Your calling me a fake is your magic, not the ability to copy others. If what you told me earlier, you're able to learn the history of a weapon with a single glance, copying the abilities of the previous owners alike and more, not needing to master the weapon for you, just simply copy it. Yes, I suppose it's true, though it's frightening and magnificent. It should be something I wouldn't enjoy facing off against, Morgan said with a frown. Are you worried about me betraying you? No. Even with your skills, I'm still far superior, Fufu Morgan said as she nudged Archer's face closer to hers. Besides, our contract forbids you from betraying me. That's not how master-servant relationships work. Yes, I wasn't talking about that contract. I'm talking about the contract that was forced upon you the moment you arrived. I made a G's that forbids you from trying to take my own life. You really planned this out, didn't you? Archer asked, amused as he felt his body get pushed by the woman, unfazed by her action as he didn't move back a lot. It's only natural to have full obedience over my familiars, but don't fret, you still have the freedom to do as you please or deny my commands. I won't punish you unless it's something that gets in my way. Yes, ma'am, Archer said, understanding that actions may have consequences. Speaking for which familiar, how has life been so far in the castle? Morgan asked Archer, turning around as she sat back down on the chair and grabbed her binoculars. Archer looked surprised as he stared at the back of his master's head. Why, the sudden question about my well-being, master? Morgan didn't answer for a while. Silence rang as the wind echoed throughout the top of the castle. It's only right for a king to be concerned of her subordinates. No matter how tyrannical I may be, I still care about my people. Including you, Archer, Morgan said as she lowered her binoculars down and closed her eyes. Archer stared at his master, seeing her hair wave around with the wind. Her face was calm, and she embraced the air hitting her face. She was relaxed. His gaze softens despite not knowing it. It's been okay, Archer replied. Have the others given you a hard time? None at all. I guess it was surprising how welcoming they were. I'm well, different than them all. Even if I am spirit, I'm still human technically. And given that you're the demon lord of monsters, and I'm also a hero, then you'd expect them to dislike you, Morgan asked. She calmly looked over the horizon, looking at the view of her kingdom, her castle, looking down at her fellow subjects. It's only natural for you to think that way, and it's only natural for some of them to have strong feelings against you, Morgan said as she lowered her gaze. We may be monsters, but just like humans, we also wish to continue living and pursuing a better future for our race. But both the human and monster race cannot accept each other. That's right. Just as humans can't see us as fellow allies, we cannot see them as fellow allies. We cannot accept each other. Although many live in harmony with demi-humans, there's still a sense of discrimination for the history of what their kind have done. Sins of the past, if you say? Yeah, it's human nature to be afraid of the unknown, but it's almost a monster's nature to be afraid of the unknown, or their nature as monsters to be monsters? It's just normal to be afraid, Archer replied. Are you afraid of anything? Morgan asked. If so, what makes you afraid of it? There were many things I was afraid of long ago, but now I no longer have fear. I've seen all kinds of things and have committed many things. I'm not a saint, nor am I a good person. Archer replied, if there's something I'm afraid of, it's having to ever meet her. Archer replied cryptically once again. Morgan raised her brow at Archer's cryptic message, but she raised her hand as her palm was open. In an instant, a gush of wind and the top of her castle all but got destroyed. Archer can only cough as he got protected by whatever blast had happened thanks to the shield around him. Master? Archer replied with surprise. The shield lowered down as the top of the castle slowly rebuilt itself. Artoria, Morgan said as she held the rolled-up piece of paper in her hand. Whoopee, that power came from a piece of paper. Archer gagged as he saw Morgan clean off any dust on her. Then he looked down at the kingdom and saw nobody reacted. He didn't even hear any screams. Don't tell me this is normal. Archer only sweats as he looked at Morgan, who reads the piece of paper. He saw as she wrote something on the paper, then rolled it back up. Getting up from her chair, and she calmly exhales. With a glare, she then threw the paper like it was a javelin. A huge shockwave occurred, and behind them, the castle top got destroyed once again, the ground beneath them shattering. The paper flew away in light speed. Morgan sighs as she raised a finger. The castle once again rebuilding itself. Something the matter familiar? Morgan looked at her servant with innocence. Archer, meanwhile, looked on with awe. He almost tripped as he took a step back. That was just a throw that looked quite effortless despite how much she recoiled her arm back. What kind of overpowered Isekai did he end up in? And why him?